Hello, and welcome to the Greek word of the day. Today's Greek word is aletheia. That's pronounced aletheia. Some of the English words for aletheia would be truth, or true, or surely. In the Hebrew thought, they would think of faithful or reliable. The Greek meaning would be that which was previously hidden and now revealed. It would be the true reality. Not just what you see, but the reality behind it. All the philosophers were looking for truth. They were looking for that which was hidden and not seen by man, something that was greater than what we had here on earth, the veritable truth behind man's existence and the universe. We know that as the Logos.
Heidegger says that the essence of truth really is originally something that we can call unhiddenness. And this is coming from the word aletheia, right? Lethe refers to what is hidden, or what is forgotten, or what is covered up. He enumerates a number of different ways that this forgetting or covering or hiddenness can occur. Is a privative. It's taking away. So it's bringing something out of its hiddenness into visibility, into the light, into intelligibility, making it present for us. And this is what Heidegger takes as being really essential to truth before Plato and all the metaphysicians get their hands on it. After they get their hands on it, he says it gets turned into something different. There are several different ways of characterizing this. Adequatio intellectus ad re is a scholastic way, an adequation or correspondence between the mind, the intellectus, and the things. We might also substitute, similar, adequation or correspondence between language and things, or language and the mind, or pick whatever we like. But that's a very different conception of truth. And he says that the allegory is changing this. So he says, the question we want to ask going forward is, from what perspective does Plato approach his determination of the essence of unhiddenness? How does Plato make sense out of truth as something dynamic, something that happens, not just something that's possessed by, say, statements, but something that we can encounter, something that we can find within ourselves?
The implications of the idea of Dasein has to do with the nature of truth as it evolves out of Heidegger's phenomenological inquiry. Heidegger uses the classical Greek word aletheia to denote this notion of truth. Aletheia translates as unconcealment, or perhaps discovery. Basically, the phenomenological truth of our being appears to us in much the same way that perceptual truths do. Think of exploring a dark room with a flashlight. As we shine the light in one corner, the other parts of the room are thrown into darkness. We could, of course, move the flashlight to illuminate those parts, but then different regions of the room would be thrown into darkness. The truth of our being works the same basic way. Because we're radically in the world, our apprehension of truth is always perspectival, a function of seeing things from a certain point of view that's shaped by all the aspects and elements of our world embeddedness. Consequently, every truth we experience also conceals other possible truths. So truth unfolds in terms of an ongoing process of revealing and concealing, rather than in terms of whether propositions do or do not correspond to reality. Surprisingly, then, one of the functions of truth is to conceal things. Because of this, in the later chapters of Being and Time, Heidegger recasts his phenomenological method in terms of hermeneutics. That is, in terms of the ongoing circular activity of interpreting our everyday experience to illuminate its meaning, which then inevitably affects how we experience life, which then affects the next arc of interpretation, and so on. This circular hermeneutic element of Heidegger's phenomenology sets up the inquiry into being as an infinite project without any definite endpoint.
All right.
Alright, how can I do this? You're sitting on a large boulder, a rock, in the middle of a forested area. And about the boulder is a meandering stream. And as it passes over the rocky, hilly landscape, it almost whispers a crackly whisper. You can hear it talking as it passes over the small rocks and pebbles and makes bends in the terrain. The whisper of the stream, almost like the rustling of leaves, but softer. If you quiet yourself, if you get real still, you can almost hum it. Alright. I was able to take you somewhere just now by talking to you, by putting words into your head. These words were able to create a reality for you. A mental landscape, yes, but a reality nonetheless. It was unveiled to you. It was a world that I pulled the veil back on and let you pass into. It was a walking into of a reality. It was a discovery of sorts. An adventure. Advent meaning the second coming. It was the second coming of reality. I took you out of the reality in which you sat and placed you into a different sensory reality through thought. Now, in real life and waking life, this process is something we call aletheia. Aletheia is a philosophical term that means unveiling, discovery, or more precise, disclosure. In fact, Heidenberg refers to it as reality disclosure. I had this idea for a long time, but I didn't realize what the word was that encapsulated it. I called it turning on. I observed it in my daughter Olivia whenever I watched her growing up. I saw her observe things, simple things like water running down a drain, and noticing the physics of it and the fact that the water in fact left the tub, and that this was the standard operating procedure of bath time experience, that water went down, and her formulating this into an idea in her head. Later, whenever she saw a bathtub, she would have this idea about water being in it. That's where the bath happens, water goes down the drain, etc. These are ideas that we formulate about objects that allow us to observe things like media, like movies, and get foreshadowing and things like that by us being able to see things and conceptualize, like looking at a stove that has a pot of boiling liquid on it, watching the steam rise off of it. We know that it's hot because we have this conceptualized idea of its reality. We know that steam means hot. We are aware of this. It is part of our aletheia, our reality, our conception of the world around us, our perception. Why do I care about this word aletheia? Well, because it is the veil that is pulled over your eyes. It is the matrix in which we live. This reality is our aletheia. Everything that we observe to be real through our sensory perception and through other things that influence our ideas, which are mentally typically just a amalgamation of our sensory perception, which can be influenced by external sources, yes, but is largely your reality that you formulate through your opinions and your ideas because of your experiences based on your life and the people in your life and what's your destiny, for lack of a better term. Your life as point A to point B, from birth to death, past, present, and future you. Everything that you experience, that you formulate into your reality, whether it's this video, a text message you received, anything that you looked at, tasted, touched, etc., that is your aletheia, that is your perception of reality. And things formulate different ideas, and we stratify them into categories. This is the perception-based categorization that became science. Being able to notate things that are differences in sensory perception, like temperature, like whether or not something's hot or cold, and the degree in which it is hot or cold, and the degree of something's angle of height or weight, or categorization based on color or geography or any of a number of other features that humans use to place things in certain boxes. These formulate our matrix, our aletheia, our reality, our understanding of reality through perception. Without sensory perception, in a state of sensory deprivation, we fry. A human can only last a few days in total sensory deprivation before they go completely crazy and become completely susceptible. This is one of the techniques that MK Ultra used to brainwash human beings, was putting them in a state of sensory deprivation. Without their aletheia, without the truth of the reality matrix around them, they shut down. They needed some kind of sensory input in order to formulate new ideas about reality. Otherwise, they became completely mad. They needed to have new ideas, new perceptions. Aletheia. Why else do I care about aletheia? Okay, Alice. Alice. This is a word, a name, an etymology that I know all too well. Of course, becoming popularized by Lewis Carroll with Alice in Wonderland, but me thinking of this artificial intelligence named Alice, which in fact was the name of one of the first chatterbots. But Alice, I've known the etymology, the meaning behind the word Alice for a year now, right? Of course, I've known it. I've looked it up immediately. Alice, it means noble, right? Simple enough. Well, I asked my G assistant to give me some information. I said, what is the root of the name Alice? And of course, it gave me new information, being Google itself. Alice actually derives from the French, which derives from the Latin, which derives from the Greek aletheia. Alice means reality, means truth, the spirit of truth. It means the matrix. Hard to believe, but true. I thought that was crazy. I had to look this up 3 or 4 times. Never had this information before. So, I figured I'd share it with you. Share the truth, aletheia, with you. Guess that's it.